Alright, well, I just pulled up to KL Fab. My EK has been sent off to his shop to get the roll cage done. And now it's time to head inside Kyle's shop and let's see what's going on with the Honda Civic. Ooh, yeah. I love going to our friends' shops and seeing cool cars parked out front. Ooh, I can see it. And I see bars in there that I didn't know were in there already. What's up, boys? What is this puzzle?
I still have it.
Wow. Am I allowed to watch it? Oh,
We're gonna bolt this together. And
I
then
see.
This guy's gonna be up here, and we're gonna make
two little sides.
I don't
So
have a
basically
press
a
brake,
mounting tab for the steering
Yeah.
column to mount on the dash bar, which I see is already in the car. You dog, you're way further along than you told me you were. So I show up here and I'm pretty surprised with the amount of progress already. Kyle's already got our base plates in, which are pretty badass too. They fall right on top of the unibody rails. We've got our cross beam in here. This is gonna be what houses the steering column, the dashboard, and the vintage air unit that we're gonna be mounting. So we'll make some tabs for that as well. So where's this gonna mount, Kyle? Basically,
Oh, this guy?
It's gonna center up
somewhere on here.
we're gonna put the dashboard, actually strip it down of all its weight and actually mount the dashboard on tabs or something so that it can easily be pulled out and then we can service that, I guess. Look how snug these bars fit. Well, I am pleasantly surprised. Kyle's much further along than I anticipated, and I think he did it on purpose to pull my leg a little bit, but I was getting a little scared that we weren't gonna get this thing done in a timely fashion, but he's actually cruising right along, so that's awesome. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and help him get some parts put together and fabbed up and continue the process. Alright, so one of the real reasons why I came down today, I'm not here to supervise Kyle. I'm actually here to sit in our Sparkle racing chair in the Honda and get the steering column to the appropriate height. Being that we've made our own cross beam between the A-pillar bars, we now need to come up with a mount. And this is the mount that Kyle originally made. And what he did was he made up another quick little bracket. We're gonna have two of these, and essentially these are gonna hang off of the crossbar. This is a really just kind of a quick and effective way to do this. It's super durable. It's made out of really thick plate. And then we'll go ahead and also toss in a 2-hole gusset plate between these guys to shore it up even more. It's super important because you want to be comfortable when you're in the car. You want the steering wheel to be centered up between your legs and the height to be where you want it to be with relation to the shift knob. So we've got all that now in place, as you can see here. The shift knob is right next to the steering wheel and feels super good to make quick changes to the gear lever from the steering wheel. So I think all in all we're off in a good direction and we're in great shape to keep moving forward with this cage. So Kyle's gonna whip up the other bracket and we're gonna get it welded in.
A few minutes later.
All right, well, fast forward about 12.5 minutes and Kyle went over to his little machine and already whipped up.
No, I ordered it on the Wish app.
Lies. But that's pretty sick, bro. So he started with this piece as a template and figured out if it fit. And then he went back over while I sat here and held the steering wheel in my lap and made that in the matter of what, 15 minutes?
Yeah, something like that. Pretty close.
Yeah, that's sick.
I'm not sure which way's front, which way's back. I think this is the front.
This is sick, dude. And you whipped that up in literally 15 minutes. It's so dope. I think that'll do. And it looks pretty chic. I haven't introduced Abe. Abe's up here just hanging out, and he's just holding the electric steering pump while I hold the steering wheel in my lap.
This is actually
And Kyle does work.
I'm gonna weld this up real quick though, and then cool it off, and then we'll tack it in, and then we can take the seat out and then burn it in.
And then I don't have to sit here anymore. So my job is actually done here now. Test fit has been accomplished. All right, well, before I take off, because we're gonna call it a night, we got the steering wheel and everything mounted, which was the goal for the day. But I want to show you guys real quick the other work that Kyle's done. So I didn't show you how snug he actually got all these bars, which is really awesome. I'm trying to go gussetless on this kit, or on this roll cage. And he did a great job of getting everything just super tight against the chassis, which I love. And these bars up here are super tucked and snug against the upper frame structure up here, which is awesome. You can't even see that bar up there pretty much. Can't get in here at all with the hand. And then the main tube is nice and tight up against the chassis. He went ahead and knocked part of the chassis back so he could get it as close as possible. And then I love the floating roll cage feet down here, which allows the roll cage bars to be right on top of the unibody rails, and then he just steps them out and triangulates them down, which puts everything, all the weight and everything that would be on this cage in a rollover on top of the unibody. So that's super awesome. I'm excited to work on the back of the cage too, because the back of the cage is always kind of like the showpiece, I think, because everybody can see it through the back window and whatnot. So again, the idea of this cage was to be as simple as we can keep it, and not crazy big gusset plates with big dimple dies and stuff like a lot of the JDM cars. I want it to look as simple as possible and as purposeful as possible, and Kyle's really pulling that off. We may end up adding some gussets just for good measure, to make sure that the chassis isn't moving around over top of the cage, but we're gonna keep it to a minimum, keep it nice and clean and tidy, because that's the way I like my stuff. Super excited with the roll cage. I've never had a car with a roll cage in it. I've had chassis braces and stuff like that, my S13 convertibles and stuff, but I've never had an actual roll cage. And this one I've had a heavy hand in designing with Kyle, so it's exciting for me. Definitely hoping it turns out as good as it looks in my head. That's not always the case, but so far so good. I'm looking forward to seeing how he finishes this up, and I think it's gonna be nice to have the car back at the shop so we can get back to work on it and then get it off the paint.
The next day.
All right, well, if you guys have watched some of our previous videos, you saw when Ricky came back from Sabon Carbon with the hood for our Subaru WRX, and there was a special package in that truck with a lot of the other stuff for the Subaru. And a few of you guys figured out what that was, and I'm going to show you right now. We picked up a pair of these carbon doors for the 96 to 2000 Civic hatch or coupe, and this is them. So really nice quality. The carbon's beautiful, and it has all the provisions for the factory equipment, which is pretty cool. So we can put the window cranks, window tracks and all that stuff back in here, and even mount our door panels when this is all said and done. So really cool product from Sabon. These are really going to help with the overall look and feel of the car that I'm going for, so I'm really excited to get these on. I wanted to make these doors easily removable for track purposes and working on the car a little easier at the shop. So we went ahead and ordered up a set of the K20, these are called quick release door hinges, and essentially these allow you to open the door, lift it, and pull the door off without removing any hardware, which is really cool. And this is how they look. They're nice and powder coated black. Probably end up finishing these off with downstars once the car comes back from paint shop. And what's cool is they've got a zip tie around them right now so they don't come apart, but essentially you guys can see that it's a single pin system, so you literally lift the door up when it's open and the door will pull away from the car, which is really cool. And then you can just set it on a stand or on a cart while you service the car. Makes it a lot easier to get in and out, especially if you're doing stuff under the dash and things like that. You don't have a door in the way, or you're working in a confined space. So not only are we going to lighten the car up with these doors, they're going to make the car a lot more serviceable at the track and here at the shop. All right, well, the first thing you guys are probably gonna notice is there aren't really any gusset plates in this cage, and that was done on purpose. I'm not a big fan of the giant gusset plates with the holes in them. I think it's kind of a cop-out. I think if a guy is good at bending up roll cages, they can get the material close enough to the chassis that you can literally just weld the cage to the chassis. And to me, that looks a lot cleaner and a lot simpler with all these big extra weight of plates and dimple dies and all this other stuff. Sort of, I don't know. For me, it overall like messes up the feel of the car, and I want this to be a super clean and simple type build. So I think Kyle really knocked it out of the park with this one. As you can see here, we've got mild steel tubing, 0.95 wall, 1.5 inch. Everything has been MIG welded, not TIG welded. I am kind of a picky when it comes to that kind of stuff, and I really wanted a TIG welded cage in this car. But Kyle's actually really handy with the MIG welder, and I think the work speaks for itself. It turned out really clean. The only difference is it's just not as fancy, but I think the overall look of the cage looks awesome, and so the MIG welding for me was okay, and I think he did a good job with it. So shout out to Kyle for listening to me and dropping some knowledge on me too about the cage. He's done a lot more of them than I have. A couple of the highlights are the door bars that we talked about earlier when we were talking about the carbon fiber doors. So we've got a side bar here for side intrusion. We've connected the A pillar bar to the B pillar bar here with a 1.5 inch DOM tube here that runs down along the bottom. In case of a side impact, you've added strength here. I've also added strength here and some protection in case of a side collision. I also added a crossbar, which will help in any type of rollover situation. And obviously we have our B pillar bar, which will allow us to put racing harnesses in here. And then also a kicker to the back. A lot of times people go overboard and do a lot of crissing and crossing. This car doesn't necessarily need that. I want to keep it lightweight but safe, and this is about as minimal as you want to go for that. We also have a header bar up here that has 2 bends in it, which is pretty common. And we have our dash bar under here, which, as you guys saw earlier, Kyle made a custom steering rack mount, and he also made a removable mount for the air conditioning system that we're going to be running from Vintage Air. So that's now mounted. We can actually put the real equipment in now, take out the mock-up box and put the real one in. Kyle actually made these really cool landing provisions here. They're a little different than what you would normally see. Normally fabricators go straight down to the floor. With Kyle's plasma cutter, it allows him to make these cool little triangulated boxes, and it allows the cage to land on the actual unibody frame. So it's here on the unibody, and it doesn't actually go onto the floor. It's still a very structural part of the car, and will allow this cage to not move should this car end up on its lid. So all in all, fantastic work from Kyle at KLFat. Really happy with the way this is turning out, and it's been really fun working with him a lot lately. But now it's time to move on to these doors. So I'm gonna go ahead and toss these on and show you guys how it's done. Okay, small update. One thing I will warn you guys, if you're gonna do this composite door conversion, just know that it takes a long time. I'm actually cutting out a lot of what I'm doing here because this has been a multi-hour process. I've done these before and had bad results, so I'm really taking my time to do a good job. And I wanna put everything back in that makes the door as stock as possible. So, being this is composite and molded, this material is a little thicker than what our steel is on the stamped steel door. And normally you would have these type of like yellow fasteners, and the problem with these is that the back is actually square. So in order to get these things mounted, you have to have a square hole that's punched in the steel doors. Well, obviously we could drill a hole, use a small file, and make square holes if we want. And that's what I had to do for this piece here, because this is a pivot, and the square mount on the back of it is actually part of the plastic pivot mount, so we need to retain that. So Sabon had already created a square hole here. It was just a little too small, so I used a flat file, opened it up, and made it work, and now that's going to be usable. Instead of trying to drill and file these 3 holes for the actual door pull assembly, which is here, essentially what I did was I just drilled M5 holes, and I'm putting an M5 nutsert in each one of them. And then we can use our low profile Downstar hardware and come up with a pretty trick setup. It looks a lot cooler than just a basic screw in there, so that if we ever run this without a door panel on it or whatever, it looks pretty cool. So I've already drilled the holes, mounted the nutserts, and it looks like we've got everything aligned, so that's really good. So I can just go ahead and throw the hardware in. And the hardware looks like this. So it's a low profile beauty washer with a 20 mil M5 fine thread bolt, and these are the same hardwares that we use on our body kits to mount them on the cars. And what's cool is they're low profile, so they'll fit underneath here really nice and look sharp. And there you have it. Now we've got a door pull and door latch. I do plan to run the stock door panels on here, so this will line up now with the little trim that goes here and look nice. Look like a stock door from the inside, and that's the look we're going for. So. So once again, I'm gonna go ahead and ditch the old 10 mil hardware and get some Downstar. This hardware is probably gonna be visible on the doors. These ones will look real sharp if I throw the nice stuff on there. It's been a couple hours passed by, and I've been just shaving, grinding, drilling, putting on moldings, and we're pretty far along, but we've still got a long ways to go. I got the windows in, the glasses in. I got to finish putting the window tracks in. If you guys are interested in this modification, I do warn you, it is an expensive modification and it is a very time-consuming install, but don't let that deter you. It is well worth the weight savings if you're going to be running a track car. It just takes some time, and a lot of times if you're running a track car, you're not putting all this stuff back in anyway. Usually you're putting Lexan windows and stuff like that. So I'm taking my time and putting a lot of care to this because I want it to have a street car feel, and I think it'll come out looking really cool if I can pull that off. So I'll spend a bit more time and knock the rest of this driver's side door out probably tomorrow, and we'll be back with more Civic content after that. I've got a couple other cool bits from my friends over at K20 to put on this thing, as I mentioned earlier, and we're gonna keep jamming.